Hello and welcome back to How to Start a Home Yoga Practice. This is Lauren Lapointe and thank you so much for being here. In this section, we're going to look at when to practice, when to put in our home yoga practice into our schedules. So the short answer is whenever you can. That's when we practice. But we'll look at a few more things in detail here. So here are a few considerations for finding the right time to practice. Finding a time that is consistent can be really helpful. So if you're not sure when it is, look at your kind of typical everyday schedule and see if there's a time where you could practice at the same time every day. We're establishing a new habit, a new routine, so consistency is key. And be realistic when planning your time. That's a biggie. A lot of times we want to do a lot. We're like, I'm going to practice for an hour every morning, and we're starting a brand new practice. That can be hard perhaps to fit in. I mean, it can happen, but just be realistic when planning your time and start small and think about your rhythms and the other things you have going on in your life and things that can change that. You might travel a lot, things like that. So try to keep that all in mind when you're picking a time. And this can be really powerful. Mark off that time on your calendar or schedule. Treat it like an appointment. So I'd recommend doing it for the next week, perhaps. Just mark off the time on your calendar, and that will help you be able to show up at the mat at that time. And just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about what time to practice is that the time of day can affect the type of practice you have. We'll talk about that a little more in a second. And I just want to mention that practicing first thing in the morning can be a great way to start the day. Okay, if that's not when it can happen for you, that's no problem. But mornings can be so lovely that I am going to spend a second here and just talk about some of the benefits to practicing in the morning. It can be easier to fit in. We can make sure that we get to it rather than trying to squeeze it in later. You know how it is, our days get busy. We don't get to everything on our list. So if we practice first thing in the morning, we know that we've got it done. We don't have to worry about it. We'll feel better all day. Starting our day with a yoga practice usually makes us just feel better and more balanced all day. It can be energizing and grounding and a lot of other things too. So it can just, again, a great way to start the day. Yeah, and it just sets the tone for the day. You're doing something for yourself. You're doing some good inner work and outer work as we're doing a physical practice. And that just really sets the tone for the day, and it can affect everything else in our lives as well. And again, you can practice at any time of day that works for you. So just keep in mind that when we practice at different times of day, we might need different types of practices. So for example, if you're practicing in the morning, perhaps an energizing practice might help, depending on what you have planned for that day, but you might need something that will kind of wake you up and get you going. Whereas if you practice in the evening, you might want a lovely winding down practice to help you decompress. So just some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about when you want to practice. And also, you can practice more than once a day. So I'm not saying only pick one time. A lot of people will do a practice in the morning and then again in the evening. But I will say that if you are brand new to starting a home yoga practice, just go ahead and plan for one time. We're establishing a new routine and habit, and it can be just really overwhelming if we try to do too much at once. So I would recommend that you just start with once a day, and then you can gradually add to that. So no worries about that. So we're going to have an exercise here too. I'd like you to go ahead and pick a time when you will be able to practice regularly and go ahead and mark it on your calendar. Maybe for the next week, let's say, or whenever you think maybe if you could do a month, that's great, or, but usually it's better to start in smaller increments. So maybe mark it on the calendar for the next few days or a week and just see if that time works. Okay, so just be ready to reassess if that time is not working out. It's going to be a process. But we're going to get started by picking a time and setting it. Okay, so have lots of fun with that. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next section. Thanks again. See you soon.